All right, come to order, please. Good evening. This is January 28th, 2013, Rhinebeck Town Board meeting. And we have tonight Kristen Henderson from the Girl Scout Cadets to start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was fun.
Wow.
All right, good evening. For announcements, the town and county tax bills have been sent out. If you have not received your bill by the end of this week, call the tax collector, 876-3203, and payments can be mailed to the address indicated on the bill or delivered in person to a local M&T Bank branch at 6375 Mill Street, right next to the post office. There's free ice. The ice skating rink at the rec park is open. The hours are 7 to 8 p.m., 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., weather permitting. Bring your own skates. So that's by the pool. Bruce's pavilion there at the rec park is it's frozen up now.
Yeah, it's pretty good. There were a lot of people enjoying it this weekend.
I heard it got cracked.
The cracks are fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's only 2 inches of water. You won't drown.
So that's 7 to 8 every day, is that?
Well, it's open till 10.
Every day?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
If the gate's open, you can use it.
Okay. There's an announcement from the New York Association of Towns. John, you know what that is, tab 1?
Sorry?
The Association of Towns?
Yes. The 2013 Training School and Annual Meeting of the New York State Association of Towns will be held at Hilton New York and Towers, New York City, February 17 to 20. This is a training session for town officials. It includes an informational hearing, a general opening session, and group sessions for various categories of town officers, including town board members, building officials, planning and zoning officials, town justices, tax collecting officers, fiscal officers, public works and highway, town clerks, town court clerks, and town attorneys. There's also a breakfast and the annual business session.
Okay. There are many openings for our committees here in the town. Specifically, we need a bunch of, about 3 probably, applicants to sign up for the Assessment Review Board. But if you're interested in any of our committees, please call 876-3409 for Town Hall, and we can update you if you have any interest to volunteer. Any further announcements? Any committee reports? Anybody have anything to report on the board?
There was a leak at the Museum of Rhinebeck History, and Marilyn Hatch and her husband John, you're really lucky to have them there. They did a great job containing the leak. There was a ceiling was damaged and a rug was damaged, and the plumbing bill was like $110. It wasn't bad, and the picking up of the carpet, they're going to try and save the carpet actually, and that was less than another $100. So, and they're going to repair the ceiling themselves, and so all told, it was less than $240.
Any further? Any committee members who want to report anything here? Okay. This should also include liaison reports. The town board members are liaisons to the committees, so that kind of follows suit with the committee reports. We do have a follow-up for the Recreation Committee, and Bruce is, I'm going to force him to take the Rec Committee as a liaison since nobody stepped up to the plate.
I can't hear you. Can you talk louder?
Councilman Washburn will take the Recreation Department as a liaison. He's been doing it since '08, and he's agreed to, since nobody stepped up to the plate, to take it over still.
So I shouldn't go to the meeting on Wednesday?
You want to go?
They're public meetings.
Thanks, Bruce, for volunteering.
I love it. Yeah.
Okay, items for business, we have a resolution approving abstract 1B.
Well, Tom, on the liaison, I gather it was a meeting of Northern Duchess Alliance, and I think a couple of people here attended. I'd like to hear what happened there.
Liz, you're the liaison, right?
No,
Yeah, you are.
I am now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
They're going to make a presentation on the 7th at the Beak with the information that all the towns brought forth,
I'm sorry, with all the information, what?
that the towns brought to the to the meeting. They're going to give their formal presentation on the 7th.
And that's going to include Rhinebeck. We gave them information.
We should have.
Did we?
I
Is that the meeting we went to in Red Hook last fall?
In May, yeah.
right.
We gave them, there's some information that we didn't give them.
They retain information from Patterns of Progress too, I think.
Sorry?
They've received information from Patterns of Progress. I believe they did the similar report. So it's not just what we give them, it's what they've retained. It's a group from New Paltz who kind of is advising Northern Duchess Alliance on collaboration efforts and possibilities in towns. And this group was hired or funded by the Alliance to look into these issues. So
My
If that's the same
understanding
report you're
was
talking about.
that they asked for information from various towns, and they were going to do a study, that for some reason, we didn't give them the information they wanted, so we're really not going to be included other than part of our town. And indeed, efficiency is something that we're all interested, taxpayers are interested in saving money. So I'm trying to figure out why we didn't give them all the information they wanted. I think we're one of the few towns, am I right?
Well, one town didn't want to take part in it. Melody Moore gave them a lot of information for the assessors, but we decided there were 3 areas that we wanted to look at. One was efficiencies within the assessor's office, highway and transportation, and the third area was health care, health insurance, employee health
Well, I would urge in the
insurance.
future that if there's an organization that's going to study efficiency.
Well, here's the thing, we
that we
could,
cooperate with it and give them information. I don't know why we didn't. Certainly didn't come before the board.
No, I believe it was requested from the supervisor, is what I was told.
Oh, is that where, really? Is that the meeting they're talking about from May that they're saying? Or is this something that I don't know about, or?
we went to the meeting in May.
Right.
We were supposed to, I went because I was interested. And the report will be released on the 7th.
I also, and I believe Kathy Kinsella signed up as well, signed up for a seminar on Wednesday about efficiency in government and specifically applying for grants for it. So we'll let you know at the next meeting how that goes. Kathy, did you sign up for it as well? Yeah. Wednesday. So we're going to be doing that. And I met with some gentlemen outside that were here about the gun safety initiative that I'm working on, and I wanted to let them know, just give them an update, that Darren Forbes and Pete Dunn and I are working on a program of gun safety that will be presented to the town. And we're also looking at, I've got partial funding for a gun buyback program, which Darren is looking into the specifics of how to make that happen. And I'm also planning on reaching out to the gun clubs to see about a gun safe harbor program that other towns have been able to do, where you can store your guns safely under lock and key outside of your home. So that's what we're looking for, and I don't want anyone to think that we're going to do anything without your input, and I just want the dialogue and the safety issue to be addressed. So we're looking at 6 weeks to 2 months maybe of getting that in place, and I will assure you that you'll all be informed as that progresses. if that's why you're here. Sure. Well, Tom?
It seems as though the focus has now changed. The last meeting, the agenda.
Jim, you want to, Jim, they can't, I want to make sure your comments are on Panda. You can come up to here.
Jim, the focus did change out of the necessity of, since the governor.
Speech here. Jim Reardon, Mayor of the Village of Rhinebeck. I'm a resident at 68 Chestnut Street here in the village. I am also the president of the Neighbors Gun Club here in Rhinebeck. The reason I asked the question is the last agenda, it was an assault weapons ban, and what I hear you presenting tonight is a completely different idea based on gun safety, and I want you to know that every gun owner here would support an effort for gun safety. That's all I have to
believe
say.
that that's true. Thanks, Jim. And then another topic is that I personally would like to request an apology from our supervisor over his suggestion, both in our last meeting and in the press, that Elizabeth, Joe, and I have acted illegally when meeting among ourselves. And after serving as supervisor for 5 years, Mr. Trout should be aware of the open meetings law that allows for meetings of persons of the same party, whether the majority or in the minority. All business that we take has acted upon only in public, and it always has been, and for him to suggest otherwise was destructive, deceitful, and damaging to our reputation. In addition, I move to enter into our minutes the open meetings law and specifically highlight section 108, which unequivocally ensures anyone of the same party the legal right to meet for any reason. This legal right becomes even more important when we're attempting to govern effectively and efficiently with an unresponsive supervisor.
Okay. Any further?
I had to make it.
That's good. Any further comments on that? Well, I'm glad you pointed out we want to keep it going. It's, I'm glad you found an exemption to the law. My point is that we conduct business openly in the public.
Exactly.
Your point is that you're legally, you have the legal privilege to do it outside the public's view. So my point is that I like to expose business to the public, since we are public servants, and that anything behind the curtain of law is suspicious, and that's my point, period. So
Excuse me, have you never had a one-on-one meeting with Mr. Washburn?
that's, sure, I have.
Well, isn't that,
Okay.
I would like to attend that meeting.
Well,
Because you're doing
that's-
it behind closed doors.
It's not really behind closed doors. That's fine. When you get an email that indicates what you're going to vote on before the meeting and says, here's the outline of what we're voting on, that's my point. Okay? Apparently you guys have met over this before also, so no, this is a board issue, so, yeah, thank you. You're in the, never mind.
Tom, although I don't really want to get into this, you really mischaracterized the email you got. The email you got did not say how we would vote. It was in response to your statement to Elizabeth as to your ideas of liaisons. I sent you an email after we discussed it to say what our ideas are. There was a full and open discussion before the board as to committee liaisons. So that was really the whole thing. Nothing was decided as to how we would vote on it. It was just our ideas. And I thought, as a matter of courtesy, since you advanced to Elizabeth, presumably to tell us what your ideas were, we thought we would tell you what our ideas were.
Right.
And had the email been opened before the meeting, maybe that would have been helpful.
Well, sure. I don't want to keep it going. It's just not good for the public, but there's a lot more in those emails than what was just described, so, but we can move on.
I disagree with that statement. I don't think there was more in the email.
Well, we talked about abolishing committees in the email, too.
Well, I talked about abolishing a committee that approached me to abolish it.
Right.
I think that I was very clear with Rhinecliff.
I'm not talking
Can I just finish?
Go ahead.
I mean, with the Rhinecliff Advisory Board, I was the liaison. I reached out to all my committees in the beginning, and they said, we're really sorry, we don't have the interest to continue. I talked to the attorney. She directed me how to deal with it. I decided, and I brought it before you guys, that why abolish it? Keep the structure in place so that if these people want to approach us again or have an issue, it's in place. It was all done with their cooperation and with a lot of going back and forth. And to characterize it, I wanted to squash out the Rhine Cliff Advisory Board was not true. You can absolutely reach out to any of them, or I can forward all of my email chains to, the chair and other members of the committee. And I think they were pretty pleased with the outcome.
And I agree with you on that. I don't have a problem with that. My comments are more directed at abolishing the Finance Controls Committee, and there was a couple other committees there that were going to be.
The last year and a
Well,
half, as
well, there you
far as
go.
I know.
Well, maybe they have. How do you know?
Oh, you would,
Presumably, they would have told us
Right.
something.
think.
Well,
Did
anyways,
they? Have they?
yeah, they have.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why don't we know what they're doing if they've met?
Did they help us on the budget at all?
Well, no, we
We
didn't.
begged them for help on the budget.
You begged them for help?
I believe we did.
Where'd you meet with them at? So you did meet with them.
We said it publicly. Why don't we have the financial board help us on this budget?
Okay.
We said
right.
it in the budget meeting.
All right, let's move on, okay?
No, I think the call for you to apologize to the Democratic caucus for holding a perfectly legal meeting and calling it illegal should be paid attention.
Well, I'm not apologizing for it. I'm not. Just not going to.
You were very much mistaken, Mr.
Well-
Trout, and you cast aspersions on the characters of these three people.
Okay.
And on their political activities.
Right.
Which were perfectly legal.
Okay, they're legal.
So are you apologizing?
I'm not apologizing.
Mischaracterizing them?
I don't think I mischaracterized them.
What?
My point is open meetings for the public from a town board. So,
Town board meetings are open.
I'm sorry, there's no more comments on this, so.
Open.
Anything else you guys want to talk about besides this?
Approach the microphone.
Yeah, look at that.
Meeting, we should be able to discuss openly, since we can't talk behind.
Can you,
Let us talk.
Apologize.
Can you-
No further comments on this at this point, okay? If you want to talk to me about it, that's
Press
fine.
asks you, will you say no comment?
Whatever that means, I don't know. So on to business. I'm sorry. So we have in front of us resolutions approving abstract 1B vouchers VAP 82 through VAP 97 in the amount of $13,369.29.
Motion?
second?
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
So moved. Item 2 for business is a resolution approving abstract 1C vouchers 98 through 122 in the amount of $197,561.80. Motion and second.
Motion?
Just gotta check, oh, yeah, second. I gotta check one thing on this. I wanna make sure the water was pulled off.
Well testing?
No. Yeah, it looks like it was, okay. Because we've gotten it removed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Abstain.
Resolution for budget transfers and amendments on tab 4. This is item 3 for business.
This was the corrected one, right? That we got this afternoon?
Yeah, it's got the equipment transfer in it. Motion?
28,000. Second? We already did. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
You had a second on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's so moved.
And I abstain.
Item 4 is a resolution adopting the Village of Rhinebeck fire contract.
How are we going to deal with this not having been in the budget, though? Is this how we are?
We will loan it from Part Town and then put it in the budget for next year.
I think the public can't hear anything. Are our microphones working? Can you hear us back there? Thank you.
Yeah, we have no,
You got the answer to that?
did the public get the answer to that?
Can you hear us?
So,
To explain explain what happened on this, Tom?
Yeah, we didn't budget for, there was $7,500 that was requested from the fire departments over the past,
Can you hear that?
and it's not for, there was a new purchase of ambulance in the fire department last year, so the $7,500 was a request from the mayor and the councilman from the village for the operations, about 60% of the. You want it, Jim? So we talked about it last time.
Jim Reardon, Mayor of the Village of Rhinebeck. Last year, Wayne Reifenberg had come to you folks prior to the budget process. And the fire company had done a fundraising drive and purchased the new ambulance last year. What we've done over the last several years is track the call volumes between the town and the village. And the majority of the emergency response calls fall within the town, not within the village. So last year, he came to you folks and discussed the whole thing, and $7,500 was built into the contract for operational expenses for the ambulance for the fiscal year. So the $7,500 wasn't to purchase, because the fire company did that privately as a fundraiser and purchased the ambulance. $7,500 is to help offset the cost of the
Is that going to be done every year for the foreseeable
unless it's
future?
renegotiated.
Okay.
Yep.
So how are we going to pay for it, Tom?
We'll have to loan it from the Park Town Fund and then tax for it next year because it's a special district. It's not part of the regular Park Town Fund.
Why do you want to do that as opposed to taking it out of contingency?
Well, I'd like to, but Shelley suggested doing it this way. Bruce suggested that also with the contingency. It's fine with me, but
What did the Financial Advisory Board suggest?
yours or mine?
Yours, I don't
You
have one.
you disbanded it, so it doesn't work anymore.
What-
So.
what-
All right, well, can we get back to this for a second? I asked the question about taking it out of contingency just before here. And what I was told was it was a different tax base, and because the fire district's a special district, and so on and so forth. But if you're loaning from a different tax base, that argument really doesn't wash. What the work that needs to be done is you need to find out what the parcels are that are in that fire district, what they paid in, and then you can take the money out of contingency. You could take it out of, a little bit out of general fund, you could take a little out of part town for that amount, but that work hasn't been done yet. So I don't mind going with the loan now, but I think ultimately we should pay it back this year, and I think we should pay it back out of contingency once that work's been done.
I think
Well,
we,
is it due now, due and payable now?
Can't
or
sign
do
the
we have
contract
time?
until we agree on that $7,500.
Right.
I think we can also call the controller's office and talk to Teresa and get some guidance. It'd be great if we could just take it out of the contingency. We may have to tax for it specifically.
But then you're going
I understand,
to
but,
tax $15,000 next year.
right,
And
We didn't
you've already
tax for it
taxed
this
the
year.
people this year for other things which are in contingency, which is $50,000.
listen, I'm in agreement, let's get some guidance. Let's just make sure that that's the proper mechanism.
Okay? I just don't want to double tax people.
I don't either.
I don't either.
Okay.
I'm
So
in the
we'll hold this
fire
over?
district.
What's that? So we're going to hold it over pending getting
No, let's...
No, we're going to make the loan and find out the
Let's go with the loan.
With
and
the part-
repayment mechanism. We have
Yeah,
to
well-
approve it.
It's just money.
But,
All right.
Bruce, it's payable now? I didn't hear your
We want to
answer.
approve the contract, and we have to agree to, we have to pay the money to approve the contract.
But it's payable now?
Yeah.
Contract runs for the calendar year, Joe, so it's already expired, but it rolls over automatically.
So payment is
Still
due
have
now?
coverage.
Payment is due now?
Yes, you still have coverage.
So we'll loan from the Part Town Fund to the Special Fire Protection District hereby. Motion and second on that?
Motion.
Second.
Second?
Part-town contingency or part-town?
It's fund. The
Fund,
whole thing.
yeah.
Big-
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item 6 is a resolution approving the maintenance contracts.
No, you skipped
We
one.
skipped 5.
Okay. Item 5 is a resolution from the March 25th, 2013 Town Board meeting. Rescheduling.
Right, it turns out that day is the first day of Passover. So I think we either have to put it later in the week, or the previous week, or forget about that meeting.
I'm fine with either one.
Any further discussion on that?
I'm sorry, it's currently scheduled for the 25th?
25th, so we either have to do it on the 27th, we do it the previous week, or we just have one meeting that month.
When
March.
does when did the books close, do you remember?
End of February, supposed to close.
All right, so I'd go for the one meeting, because the next meeting we would have all the books up to date.
Has anyone checked with Shelley about signing off of vouchers? Because we won't have an end-of-month signing of vouchers meeting.
But-
I just raised that.
Why don't we put it off just go to one meeting, and if Shelley needs another meeting, we can
Special meeting.
do a
later in
special
that week.
meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
So we're on summer schedule from now on, right?
So
The month of March.
we could have that maybe done by the 11th. All right, so just cancel the meeting at this point in time, the March 25th meeting. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. We didn't, motion.
Motion.
and Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Item 6 is a resolution approving the maintenance contracts.
Motion. This is the porta potties and the continuation of the mowing. The mowing one has the porta potties were bid, because we do that on an annual basis. This is the last year on the mowing contract, and it's got whatever the uplift was for fuel that we'd put in the contract. This is the last year of that contract, cannot be extended anymore.
How do you think that's worked out, Bruce?
It's worked out fine, as far as I can tell. They're very responsive. The only issue has been they've wanted to do a fall cleanup, which I think is what the landscapers do, and I've always said, why do we want to do a fall cleanup? We get a spring cleanup for free, so.
I just pose something regarding workman's comp. Our new agency just sort of said one of the biggest liabilities for us is hiring. Do we have certificates of insurance on file for these people, independent contractors, or, for workman's comp?
When they signed on, it was just the owners, and they didn't need it at the time. Since then, I believe they've brought on another worker, and the other worker, they said they're going to get workers' comp for that person, or they will not use that person on our property.
We need held harmless or lost pay, because all the other, whatever other
We have that.
disasters we talked about, this is one of the greatest liabilities for us as workers who
Right,
weren't
right.
covered by workman's comp. So I would just move that we make sure that we have certificates on file before renewing this.
Oh, okay.
Or
So, just by the way, this was all new. Obviously, you've been talking to the bookkeeper.
no, the Spain agency sent me an email when
Okay,
we.
but where this came up, as far as I know, is the bookkeeper has told people that she turns in the names of anyone who works in the town. And so she put the contractor, send in the names of the contractor. That was the kind of thing. And the reason was because she was doing what she thought she was supposed to do, which was to protect the town and protect the workers. The list, though, seems to be arbitrary. For instance, Art Broad, the planner,
Right.
right? Is he on the list? And, you know, is it inclusive, that kind of thing? We need to look at that. I think we can approve the contract contingent on the waiver or on the coverage.
Yeah, no,
I have no problem with
yeah,
that.
this is just, I got a heads up, and I think I emailed you all about this several weeks ago, that the Spain agency said, forget about, people falling off the dock. What your biggest liability is uninsured workers. Make sure you have these things on file. So I just raise it that,
Right, but there's another issue in here. The other issue is that if we've been paying for workers' comp for people who are covered under their firms in the past, then that would partially explain why our workers' comp bills have been so high compared to other towns. It's not just the carrier.
well, this
It-
carrier does not cover sole proprietors or, people,
Right,
Independent contractor.
right,
right,
so.
because it's the state law, yeah.
But
sorry.
Bruce, doesn't somebody look at those lists to make sure that we're not putting on independent
But-
contractors?
That's what I'm saying. I didn't
Let's-
even know about that
Okay,
she was
that's a good
doing this.
point.
Let's just,
We need to do that.
you and I said we'd look at payroll, let's look at this.
Yeah, but, so let's just approve this based on providing those things.
Good.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Item 7 for business is approving the BAS software service contract.
Motion.
Second?
Is this single source? Is the only place we can get this?
The clerk, this is the clerk's software, right, John? Oh, it's everybody's actually isn't it for receiving,
I think Shelley might have it,
yeah, but downstairs too?
not sure.
Okay. I don't know if it's single source.
I thought we checked that last year, Bruce.
No, I don't think so. I didn't even. Okay.
Any discussion on it?
We don't know the answer.
Well, in theory, it's starting in March. We could hold it and check.
Service contract, let's look at it until March, how about that? You want to hold it over?
I'm just curious,
You interested in,
we have
Following
all
up?
these little $1,000, $2,000
Yeah.
things all over the place that
these
we.
are the kind of things that go up, and then there might be
Yeah.
a deal. We'll hold it over till the 11th, March
I mean, and
11th.
also, is it, including all the modules that we want, or et cetera?
This is an RDA.
Oh, it's the BAS, I'm sorry.
It
Yeah.
wouldn't have to be held over till March, Tom. The contract starts in March, but we could vote on it in February.
Right.
I'll check on it. I'll check on it.
All right. We'll hold it over. Item 7. Item 8 is approving the accounting services contract. Accounting service contract.
It's the one that we had last year that we got. It was a lower price and it was done faster, and I recommend that we stay with her and that's what Shelley thought as well.
Didn't we have a problem with it last year?
Gina and I talked, I'll give her the errata, and we'll send it to the accountant, so we don't have the same problems this year.
Think they'll tighten it up the second time
Yeah.
around? All right.
But this thing attached to the resolution is last year's bill, it's not this year.
Right, but it's authorizing the same amount. All they're doing is evidence.
So it's the
Showing you
same
the
price,
break-
but it's
the-
not this
the
invoice.
The breakdown of it.
The thing, well, the other thing Gina and I talked about is on the website, on the controller's website, there's the canned forms that you fill out. And so we have to take a look at that and see whether that's something we could do ourselves and not even do this, pay for this, because it seems to be a worksheet. So,
Well,
but I'm okay with it.
I
if you want.
discussed, Shelley doesn't think there's any way she can do it with her time constraints. I asked her about that. And until we get her some backup help, or a financial control officer, or whatever the person was we authorized to bring in to help with that, that theoretically could be the person who could do it, Bruce.
What's it, about 60 or 90 pages of information they want? Things huge.
Right, but all it is taking the accounting codes out of the RDA software. As far as I understand it, you can import your export your file from RDA, it imports it into the worksheet. And then you might have some swizzles that you have to go through. But, okay, we didn't investigate it, so I think we really should. Because we were paying, on the same recommendation, we were paying $5,400 every year for
Right.
buku years. We knocked it down to 3,000 or something.
Then 19.
Then we went to 19. And that difference is significant, so. All right.
So, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, so moved.
We didn't?
Item 9 is a resolution relating to the restrictions of the workforce housing agreement with the Rhinebeck Gardens Group LLC.
Let me explain this.
Second.
Let me explain this, and maybe I can ask Chris Lipscomb from the Affordable Housing Committee to come up with me. As you know, we've entered into an agreement with the Gardens to make available a certain number of units for workforce housing. The Gardens has been working for 6 or 8 months to try to pre-clear the financing of these units for with FHA and, well, not with FHA, for Fannie Mae and possibly in the future for FHA. About 10 days ago, we were informed by the Gardens group that they had retained a group at Bank of America to help expedite and file these forms with Fannie Mae to get Fannie Mae to approve the project so they would buy the mortgages. We were told they would be happy to include the workforce units with the market rate units. However, we would have to waive restrictions in the event of foreclosure. And these restrictions were that the units would have to remain workforce housing, that they couldn't be sold for more than what the buyer who defaulted paid for it, plus depreciated improvements. And we were asked to waive these restrictions. We've been investigating as to whether this is really true or not, that Fannie, and we looked at FHA, would not insure or buy unless we waive the restrictions. So far, we've established that FHA, in fact, will not insure these units if restrictions apply in the event of foreclosure. So that if the developers seek to qualify the project for FHA insurance, if we wanted our units to be included in that, we would have to waive the restrictions. So far, my understanding is they haven't applied to FHA. With respect to Fannie Mae, we have spent hours on the telephone trying to verify whether this is true, that Fannie Mae will not pre-clear the purchase of these mortgages unless the restrictions have been waived. We've had conference calls with the developers, with Bank of America, and we have looked at a Fannie Mae guide. It appears to us that maybe these restrictions are okay, despite the advice that the developers are getting from Fannie Mae that we have to waive. However, we are encountering great difficulty in trying to speak to Fannie Mae. It is impossible to get this organization. I myself have probably spent 5 hours on hold with them. We've appealed to our Senator Gillibrand to help. I have appealed to a number of nonprofit organizations who specialize in affordable housing to give us contacts at Fannie Mae, but so far we've been unsuccessful. We are under, however, a great deal of pressure from the developers who want to go ahead and file an application with Fannie Mae. And they are telling us, look, if you don't want your units included, fine. You go do it some other point, which would be a huge job to do the forms. So I've prepared a resolution giving the town supervisor authority to waive these restrictions in the event of foreclosure, but we still plan on pursuing Fannie Mae and trying to work out something where we don't lose the opportunity for Fannie Mae financing for these units, because it would really facilitate the sale of these units if there was a financing source for the mortgages. So we don't intend to waive right away. Maybe we can convince the developers to hold off till we can get definitive information. But since they're quite hot to trot, we think that we may not have time before the next board meeting to bring this in front of the board. Now, a waiver of these restrictions means that although we've subsidized through developer money these units, that they should always remain affordable. In the event of foreclosure, if we waive, we run the risk that that unit is gone from the affordable housing stock.
Is it possible that if we made this waiver to facilitate the funding, that we could have somewhat of a gentleman's agreement with the developer that he would retain them as workforce housing in the future if they were foreclosed? I mean, are we bound by that waiver?
Well, it wouldn't go back to the developer. It would go to the bank if there's a foreclosure.
Right, the bank would
But the
foreclose
bank
it.
would sell it then at the higher rate, and it would be taken out of the pool of workforce housing at that point. Is that correct?
In theory, I mean, there are ways that you can, for instance, get an option to buy it back into the program. The town could. There are various ways of structuring it. I think the point here is we're just changing that technicality so that this application can go through while we figure out the details.
And what does your committee think?
Well, I mean, obviously there is concern. We want to make sure that they are workforce priced in perpetuity, and we want to protect that investment by the town. So we will work on a method to do that, but it may not be within the deed restrictions. There are several ways of doing it.
Okay. And the people who process the housing applications and stuff, do they have a thought on this? Have they weighed in on it?
Yeah, Hudson River Housing is familiar with one program in a town south of here where they did waive the deed restrictions. Hudson River Housing thinks it's a remote possibility that any of these units would ever go into foreclosure because they're going to help the borrower, and if worse came to worse, they would come up with another buyer who would buy it, so it didn't go through foreclosure. I take all of that with a grain of salt. Who knows what the future will bring, and if you waive a restriction, you have to be prepared for worst case. We may be able to figure out something. Certainly, if we had the money at that point, the town through our affordable housing fees, maybe we could buy and pay off the mortgage. But, you know, who knows what the future, so that is the risk.
I get it.
So there's a risk, and we don't have a choice if we want to go forward.
We don't have a choice if we want to get Fannie Mae financing for the borrowers, and at least my limited understanding of the mortgage market is that it is very hard to get a mortgage
Without.
these days. Banks want to sell the mortgage as soon as they initiate the process. They want their upfront fees. They don't want to hold mortgages, so that it really may foreclose practical financing for workforce housing buyers. I think we have a question from the floor.
Joe, let me ask you, does this risk, we don't have a law in effect yet. I mean, we're doing this based upon the cooperation of the developer. Is this a risk for us down the road when we do have a law as a past practice issue?
Well,
I mean,
taking the restriction out is not a risk in itself until we actually have a real case.
But it's where we want to go down the road with it for the future too, or, I mean, it's not something that you,
Ideally, we have to have something in place to secure it. We're just not sure how to do it yet. And looking at the Fannie Mae guidelines, for instance, they do contemplate deed-restricted properties. But that's because they operate in lots of states. In some states like New Jersey, it's illegal to require that it not have a deed restriction. So New York State doesn't really have quite the same precedent. So I think we just have to work our way through the regulations and find out how to do it.
right.
But Tom, in the future, we really don't know how our affordable housing program will work. If we collect enough money in fees, we can buy or subsidize a purchase of somebody who's buying it. Maybe we don't have to deal with the bank if we have our own pot of money through affordable housing fees. But it may crop up if we have to adopt the program where mortgages will have to be obtained by buyers.
Kathy, you have a comment?
I'm Kathy Kinsella, and I am the current treasurer of the Board of Managers for the Phase 1 of the Gardens and the past president of that board as well. The Phase 1 residents recently worked with the developer as well to remove some restrictions that we had in our documents, but they were not along the lines here because it's not a workforce housing program. Basically, we needed to take out some right of first refusal language that in the current climate could be construed as at the time it would be invoked, of the potential for being discriminatory. So we worked with the developers on that language. As they pointed out the problem to you, they pointed out the problem to us. We looked into it, we consulted with our attorney on it as well, and we did work with them on that. I think that case, though, is very different from the case of the restrictions that are being proposed to be removed from this program, with the workforce housing program. The workforce housing program was put together, and again, many residents of the Gardens, as you know, you were at the meetings, did attend and follow along and had a lot of questions about this, and a lot of questions that I think were satisfactorily answered to garner a lot of support for this program from Gardens residents, of course, not 100%, but overwhelmingly. I think, though, some of the things that gave residents really a reason to want to support it too, and feeling that it was good for the community because they had confidence that something wouldn't happen in a bad economy, or that there could be anything potentially that would lead to flipping units, making turnover happen, quite frankly, without any kind of real personal investment in the property. This is a home to eventually 225 units at the end of Phase 3, 83 which are currently populated. Again, there was a lot of confidence in the program because they were going to be owner-occupied units and couldn't be used as income properties. And other restrictions, your resolution says various other restrictions, but they're not enumerated. I think that this would be of major concern to the residents currently living there. They're part of this development. Now, we're not affected by workforce units being in phase one, but we are all one development, and we are all one master HOA for shared amenities and the commonalities between the three phases. I think that we would like time to digest this as well and know what the impact is going to be on us as investors in this overall development and those of us that are living there. And when I say investors, I don't just mean money. I mean investors of our sweat, our loyalty to our homes, our loyalty to our neighbors. This is really, I think this is a big item that you're putting forth. And as I said, it seems to really, the removal of these restrictions fly in the face of the intent of workforce housing. So I'd offer those comments and thank you.
But we don't really have a choice here. If you want Fannie Mae financing, that may be the price. As to whether owner-occupied or not, is there a restriction in Phase 2 on market units? Can they be bought by investors? Or, you know, because if there's no restriction in the market rate units, why would there...
Financial incentive by it being an under-market unit. There's a financial incentive for abuse because of the market. If you can snatch something up cheaper than the market rate and start using it to produce income, that really seems to fly in the face of the overall intent of the program.
In response to that, we're talking here about not removing the restrictions entirely or the program. We're talking about doing it in a different way. The deed restriction is one mechanism for doing it. There are several other ways of enforcing those restrictions. But if it's in the deed, it may make it impossible to actually do the program.
That's not clear in the resolution. I think that, you know...
But that's the intent of what we're trying to do here.
It seems to me that it's probably better to have financing backed by Fannie Mae and FHA in the long term and to get it off the ground and to get it going. That seems to be my sense of it. But you guys have put in all the work on it. And
We're being told by Hudson River Housing that if you don't get Fannie Mae to buy, that practically you're going to have a hard time for people to get mortgages.
And that's obviously what we don't want.
Right, we want people to get mortgages,
We
or you
still-
don't have a program.
We still hope to hear from Fannie Mae that they do in fact allow this to happen and this would not be an issue.
Right, we
This
have,
is a contingency rather than a...
right, we are beating the bush to try to get a responsible official of Fannie Mae to weigh in to see if there really is this restriction. As I said, we've appealed to our senator's office to come up with names. We are trying through public interest groups that specialize in affordable housing to try to help us reach Fannie Mae. So before we ask Tom to waive, we will exhaust all possibilities. But if the choice is let the developer go ahead and not include our units, I don't know practically how we're going to be able to get our units cleared for Fannie Mae purchase.
Well, you guys have put in all the work on it, and I totally, I'll go along with your recommendations on this because you know much more than I do.
Right. We were horrified to be notified that we had to waive this. Believe me, we are not happy about it.
I'm sure, there's a risk, I get it. Have you talked to other people, other affordable housing associations, other towns that have done it, and what do they, were you able to find anyone? What do they say?
Not in New York State.
Yeah, Connecticut or where,
The problem is the rules are different.
right.
wherever you go.
I know,
So,
I know Wilton's got a very successful program, but they don't have the same mortgage requirements.
I mean, we will do everything we can to make sure that the net effect is the same. It just may be that although it's easy to put something in a deed restriction, that may not be the way we can implement this.
Is the community down south that Hudson River Housing cited, is that a condo place too?
Fishkill, East Fishkill.
The only thing I know is that Mary Ling from Hudson River Housing says we should waive, and she cites as an example one other project. I assume that's the project where they did waive the deed restrictions.
But you don't know whether that's a condo
I
project?
believe
Don't
it's a
know.
condominium project, and that's another problem, because if it were just standalone buildings, you could create a community land trust. There are various other mechanisms that, you know, you can write a second mortgage on the underlying land and so on.
To the extent that it's worth something, the developer has said that they've retained Bank of America to advise them on pre-clearance. They say that this unit of Bank of America, which is located out in California, they pre-clear hundreds of condominium projects. They are experts in the field, and they say you got to waive it. We take that with a grain of salt till we actually see something in writing from FHA. That's what we want to see, because when we read the guides, we thought it was not clear.
And we'll also go to some other banks too and take their take on it as well, just to get a second or third opinion.
So we have a motion and second, right, on John, right? So do you want a roll call for this, or probably should be?
Yeah.
So Supervisor votes aye. Councilperson Gelb.
Aye.
Councilperson Fox.
Aye.
Councilperson Washburn.
Aye.
And Councilperson Spenzia.
Yes.
That's so moved. So we can move forward with this.
Thanks for all your work on it.
Thanks, Chris. Joe, did you have a late item for business for the
I'm
agenda?
sorry,
Do you
what?
have an item for business on the agenda? You wanted something that came up at 4?
Oh, that was this,
That was this?
yeah.
Okay, all right. Item for discussion is the annual department accounting reports.
We were given these packets at the last meeting.
Right.
Yeah. I saved mine.
So we'll follow up with that. This would conclude our requirements by the
I can't, I'm
state.
sorry, I can't
This-
hear.
we had a deadline of last meeting to begin this, so we accepted them, and now we're just going to conclude them. So if anybody has anything they want to input.
Do we need to, are we auditing our?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah,
We've had our reports in front of us. And as far as me, John's pretty much cleaned up the clerk's office with what I was concerned about, so. I mean, that'll come through with the comptrollers, but there's a lot of issues that have been cleared up here from the clerks, so.
I want to crawl through payroll, and I asked Elizabeth if she'd join me. She's agreed to do that.
And we'll look at workman's comp, too.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, in what?
I want to look at payroll. Also, I want to see every receipt for rec. When the controllers were here, the policy was different than what we had thought it was, and so I want to crawl through that, and it's one of those places where we don't know where the receipts are going.
Well,
So-
why, because there's a lot of cash, or?
Yeah, there's cash, and what happens is that the receipts get turned in here, and then when we ask for the receipts back, we have trouble finding them. They're in the building someplace, but we don't know where. So we have to, now's the time to do that before we start taking in money for the year.
Do we have a sense when our audit's going to come back from the controller's office?
They keep pushing it back, so I don't know. I'll find out. They've had further questions, but we'll find out.
Should we go through this, or do we know which audits we're handling? I mean, I don't really have any departments anymore with money, so I can take something if someone's overwhelmed. Do we,
I have zoning.
I'd be happy, Elizabeth, to let you take over building if you want, or
Sure.
one of the justices.
whichever you like.
Fine, let's talk. But I had a question for John. John, on the
Oh,
thing...
one good news, I did the partial accounting for the highway driveways last year for this year, so I think I have it done through June for you. I could pass that over.
John, the question I have is the thing you did showing total revenues 159,000, presumably that should match what's on the actual department sheets? Or where do you get these numbers from that you presented to us?
That would not match the department sheets because it includes both the department stuff and my stuff. And that was the nature of the change that I asked for starting January 1st. This number will be significantly lower because it will no longer include the building, zoning, and planning stuff that had been run through my office. So this is a combination of all of that. Does that make sense?
Yes. We'll separate it out of your office. It will only be accounted for in the various departments.
Right.
You will not be a conduit for this money anymore.
Right.
And you're going to give us the bank statements now with your report, or following up?
Oh, you mean all the backup for this?
Yeah, we never see the bank statements.
Sure.
Yeah,
Of course.
so I thought we'd agreed to that. We talked about it.
Did we discuss that?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Of course.
Okay.
And John, when I leave things in the front of my binder, do you keep them? If I put them in this front, would you keep them for me?
Sure.
I mean, don't throw them out, but
Okay.
anything in these you can.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on that? Item 2 is water.
I'm sorry, when do we have to have these audits done?
Well, should be done now, but.
As soon as practicable.
Do we, March, you want to shoot for March, or?
March
Next
11th.
meeting?
Wait.
No,
next meeting is,
no.
February
I'd be
11th.
kidding.
March?
Yeah.
Okay,
one
April,
meeting in
1st of it.
March?
2 years ago, it was May. Last year, we didn't really do much with it. But it took us until the end of May, 2 years ago, to get through everything.
Yeah.
John, you have in here, in your affidavit, like C of O's, $19,330. But Ed Maddock says that it's $7,850 for C of O's.
What's his total there, Ed's total?
Is he conducting it?
I
I
can't,
think he's auditing you,
You're
yeah. I
auditing.
think this is the audit.
Getting,
right, he must be including several things.
Well, can
I
we-
think,
Let me-
somehow
let
we'll
me-
have to reconcile.
let me cut that short for you. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. All I know is that those people bring checks up and I enter them. And they call it a C of O. I get checks from Jay Dean for C of Os and from Kimberly for C of Os. Does that all include Ed's area or some other area?
Elizabeth will investigate that as part of
I
the
guess I'm
audit.
getting the building department.
I mean, it's actually, it speaks to why it shouldn't be run through my office, because I wasn't really doing anything. I wasn't auditing
You're
their
mainly
stuff.
depositing checks.
All I was doing was filling out deposit slips. So it's not, I wasn't adding any value.
Well, all we were getting out of it was the separation of responsibility so that the people keeping the books weren't the ones depositing the money.
Yeah, but Shelley has all that.
But before, what we were trying to do was make sure that that's separate, that's all. So you, by coming to your office was a way of getting it, keeping it separate from the bookkeeper.
Right, but I'm making the deposits anyway.
Yeah.
It's a question of whether I make the deposits and run it through my books.
That's a different thing.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Item 2 is water at the town highway garage by the mayor.
This is the stream you're talking about, right? The stream running next to it?
I guess you folks are aware Heinz has been here before speaking with you. Over the last couple of years, we all know we're facing very challenging times, so we've been taking a real close look at our operations and looking at everything with a microscope. And it's been quite obvious to us that we produce an awful lot of water at the water plant that we can't reconcile for what we built. And in doing some investigation, what we found is that there are several locations, the town highway garage is one, where there's no meter. So we have no idea how much water is being consumed at locations. Fire company, there's nothing there. So we had some concerns about it, and the comptroller's office just came in a short time ago and did a risk assessment to determine a risk assessment. What they do is they take a look at your books and determine whether they want to do an audit. And they were happy with everything, but they did have some concern when they look at the water department and they see, I'll just use an arbitrary number, 12 million gallons of water that's produced, and there's only billing for 10 million. That's a red flag, question mark. Why? How come you can't account for the dollar value of that water? So what they have said, after I talked with them and I explained to them, we have had the same concerns, and we're doing some investigation, trying to determine locations, where and when this all took place, why it took place. I think I kind of allayed their fears a little bit, but they still have not made a determination on how they're going to proceed yet. They could come back and say to us they want to audit our water department, which, and I told them, fine. If we're doing something wrong, we want to know about it. So what we are attempting to do now is install meters at these locations so that we have a clear picture of what consumption is, and it helps us reconcile our books. So that's our intent here, is to put a water meter at the highway department so we can find out how much water is flowing to the building and try and help offset this question mark. That's what we're asking for. All right? Any questions?
What percentage are you, what percentage of what you produce is unaccounted for? I'm just curious.
20.
Wow.
20%, that's a lot.
Significant.
And they say 6% is acceptable?
Well, they didn't, didn't hear them say anything. What I have found out since I've been making this decision here is that there are some locations who have huge amount of water loss. Albany had, Buffalo somewhere in the areas, they have 50%. Across the river, they have 4 to 6%. Port Ewan, Poughkeepsie has about 16 to 17%. Hyde Park is in the 25 to 35% range. But we have about, we cannot account for about 20%. I'm sorry, we have a difference of 20% of which we can account for maybe 6 or 7%. So we still have, we may lose some to bad pipes as well.
We have some areas in the system where we have to do flushing because we have a dead end, and we have to flush it to keep the lines clean, the turbidity out of the system. We have another area we're looking at that crosses the Landsman Kill, and it actually goes through the stream, and because in the wintertime it gets so cold, water has to be left running so that it doesn't freeze. So these are all things we're looking into. And as I mentioned, the fire company is one location we're looking at, and the highway garage is another one.
How much does it cost to install a meter, Jim?
I think the meter itself, and I think I have given Kathy this information a few months ago, is about $800. We probably have to install it sometime in the March timeframe once the frost gets out of the ground, because they have a pit that has to be put into the pit.
And would we pay for that, or would you,
Yes.
who would pay for that?
Yeah.
You
By
would?
law.
The village code states that.
Ah.
Yeah. Village code says every user in the system is supposed to have a meter. So like I said, you know, we're going back, I'm sure there's probably historical information on some of this, but it's way before my time, you know. And Pete Zipperly's always a good resource when we need to find something out, but, you know, there are unanswered questions out there. And there could have been a handshake gentleman's agreement years ago. Who knows?
So, and there's no intent, at least at this point, to charge us for
No.
that water usage?
No.
But just a question of monitoring
But
how
if we
much
find out
there is.
there's 3 million gallons being
Right.
used there, we may say, hey, wait a minute, you know, and what we have to realize here, this is a user-based system. This isn't a tax-based system. So the users of the water system are paying for all of this water to be produced and not billed for. So that's not equitable for them, certainly. So, you know, we're taking a hard look at it, and, you know, we want to get the puzzle figured out.
But Jim, the fear is that you may turn around and want to charge us for it, and, you know, we provide a lot of services to the village that
what way, Joe?
we don't charge for. I think storage of some of your materials,
We pay for that.
gas at cost. I've heard that there are a lot of items that are done on a free basis between the town and the
I don't
village.
know if I would agree with free. I think the costs are covered, and I think that's part of sharing services. But, you know, when we talk about free water, that's exactly what's happening. There's no charge whatsoever. We're not even talking cost. And as I say, it's not a tax-based system, so it's not equitable. So we want to take a look at it. And certainly if we have any intent of doing anything, we're going to come to you folks and we're going to talk about it, and perhaps we can work out some type of a sharing or municipal agreement where we're not just, you're handing me a check, Tommy's handing, you know, we're going back and forth across the table, you know. But this isn't something, by law, our code says it needs to be metered. The comptroller's office has a concern, so we're addressing the concern.
And we're paying for the water. It costs us about $5.40 per 1,000 gallons that we produce. It's in our budget. It's not, you know, it costs us money.
Right.
Any other questions?
Do you need us to approve a meter, or you don't need us to approve it? It's your property, right?
Well,
The line.
the meter needs to be installed.
We need to put one in.
Oh,
It's your property.
okay.
The
So,
question is that if the town does approve installing a meter, how does the town want to pay for that? That's something that needs to be part of the discussion. It's an unbudgeted item.
we know the value of it yet, the price of it, or anything?
Well, it's hindsight.
About
It's
$800.
It's about $900.
Yeah.
Last one, the one I gave you was.
That's for the pumps, and it needs to know when to install it as well. Is it something that if the town purchased a meter, would the water department be able to help with the installation? Sorry?
You need to get a plumber to do that.
You have to figure in
Or
those
you can
costs.
do it yourself.
You know, whenever something like this happens, the water department oversees these types of things, to make sure that it's put into the specifications that we need it to be.
Has the fire department put a meter in yet?
We haven't done it yet, no, but we're looking at it.
But they're also using the hydrants right in front of the fire department. That is one of the problems.
I'm sorry, Heinz, I didn't understand what you're saying.
The fire department uses the hydrants in front, to a large extent, they use the hydrants in front of the fire department.
So
They fill up their trucks and so on. Now for washing the cars and so on, they use them inside. We will install them in there. We will pay for that.
Any other questions?
No,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
So we should follow up with that, it's next meeting to vote on it.
Oh,
Vote on
vote on-
installing the meter.
we just have to figure out where to take the money from and
Right.
get it going.
Kathy-
We need to figure out where to get the money to pay for, where we're going to take the money from and approve it. We'll get it on the.
But Heinz, you just say that we could do it, put it in ourselves, I think you just said. We can put it in ourselves, you said? I thought I heard you say that.
We will send somebody here to make sure it gets done right, yes.
Well, we need a plumber.
Right, well, okay.
That's what that's
All
what the
right.
question was before. If
Ain't a big deal though, I don't blame you. You know, Not as much as the meter itself.
All right, item 3 is a motion canceling the town tech RFP.
It's a formality, and we're not canceling it so much as rejecting the 2 bids that we received. One wasn't received timely, so this is just procedural. What I'd like to do is reject the 2 bids. I'd like to meet with the 2 applicants who bid on it with our tech committee and informally refine and discuss, workshop what we've received, then rejig the RFP, put it out again, and go from there. It's a procedural formality.
Do you need a motion to do this?
Yes.
Yeah, motion, I'll motion on that, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Okay, item 4 is the core group zoning variance.
You want to do it, or you want me to do it?
You can do it.
We have before us, I put it in your box before the last meeting. It's an application from Core Group for a zoning change on Middle Road. And the town's the lead agency under SEQR, but we have to decide to refer this to the planning board. The planning board has 60 days to look at it, to vet it. They will look at it from a zoning point of view, legal zoning, is it spot zoning, is it not? They'll come back to us with their recommendations, planning and zoning recommendations. We're still lead, we can reject it at any time, but in good faith, we have to only put this forward if we believe there's some merit, because the applicant is going to be spending quite a bit of money. There's a $2,000 application fee, and then there's the funding of all of the escrows. So, you have to decide whether or not you believe there's merit in this. To have the planning board look at it, we refer it to them and go from there. They'll give us a positive or a negative declaration, and we can then enact a zoning change if we think it's deserved. So I'd like to make a motion to forward it to the planning board for a 60-day review.
Second.
Any further discussion on it? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Elizabeth, as part of that referral to the planning board, we're going to ask for an opinion of council that it's legal and not spot zoning.
Yes, that's exactly what they're going to do, and you can pass on any concerns or any questions that you have, and they will address them specifically. But that spot zoning is basically what they're going to be looking for, the legal ins and outs of the zoning. So that's primary concern. One concern I have is, will it erode our tax bases? So I plan to talk to the assessor to make sure that it won't. Personally, I give you that as an example.
Part of the request has to include how it benefits the town, or how it won't hurt the town, or how it enhances the town. So
How it doesn't the applicant shouldn't be the sole benefit for this.
Right.
It has to benefit the town as a whole.
we're just passing it on, then we'll get it back from the planning board. As she
But,
said.
it's the believing that you think it has merit, because we don't want any applicant to spend money needlessly.
Okay. Item 5 is the rec committee. Did you have this on? Maybe this is just to a point.
I'll do it.
Okay. So Bruce will do it. So, all right, what that means is Bruce will be the liaison for the rec committee, so, okay. Any further items from the board? Joel, you have a...
How's it going? Happy January. I'll try to be brief. This Wednesday at 7 o'clock is a county legislature public hearing on the reapportionment plan. I'm not particularly upset personally about the fact that Rhinebeck and Clinton is still together. I was raising a bit of a ruckus about that about 6 months ago, because the first iteration of the plan, my little tenth of the town of Clinton, was put together with the eastern half of Hyde Park. That's been fixed. But a number of people like myself have concerns about the process. The Daily Freeman and the Poughkeepsie Journal have done editorials for years, many times, a multiple of times, about their concerns about the process. Last May, the Daily Freeman ran an article about the Citizens Commission on the Steering Committee on Reapportionment, Ron Ray, Lucy Curriger, Gerald Hayes, and David Kelly. They didn't meet for 7 months last year. I have concerns about that. Basically, I thought we were all sort of led to believe that there were going to be the citizens' input into helping to redraw the lines. That didn't happen. The consultant that was picked by the county legislature majority to redraw the lines, Dutchess County is the last county in the state to do this. The consultant is the same consultant that the New York State Senate majority used, David Schaefer of Skyline Consulting. I have a wee bit of concern on that. The editorial in Saturday's Daily Freeman pointed out that when the independent redistricting law that we passed was repealed, it was done at 1:45 in the morning, and no public input was allowed. So anyway, this is going to continue every 10 years unless you folks care. So if you can make it to Poughkeepsie, carpool. It's this Wednesday, 7 o'clock. Come and speak up about the problems in the process. It's on the 6th floor of the county office building, right opposite the Bardavon. There are folks who have been trying to rip away item pricing in Dutchess County for many, 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 many years. It's just if you go into a supermarket, you see prices on all the items. There are more and more legislators like myself who are concerned about this. Month after month after month, it's been on the agenda, and crazy activist legislators like me seem to be waking people up like NYPIRG and the labor movement. If you care about being able to go into a supermarket and see prices on your items, I ask you to get involved, okay? The county legislature, the full board meeting is usually the second Monday of each month. Committee day is the first Thursday. I want to give you guys a lot of credit. The town board, the village board here in Rhinebeck, town of Clinton, Red Hook, Rosendale, town of Poughkeepsie, Woodstock, all over the Hudson Valley. All these municipal buildings have solar panels. There are no county buildings with solar panels. 5 years ago, I got a resolution passed. Ms. Hugo was there. She was the clerk for the county legislature. Jim Doxey, who's a fellow county legislator, he doesn't even want to sponsor a resolution with me for solar panels on the county buildings now because Jim knows we passed the resolution. It was never implemented. So why am I talking about it? I'm talking about it because I would like to see, before I just turned 49 in December, before I turn 70, I would like to see some solar panels on some county buildings in Dutchess County. And I can't do it alone. Like every corny politician you've heard for your entire life, I can't do it alone. So please, talk to the county executive, talk to DPW, talk to other county legislators. If there are ever going to be solar panels on any county building, and again, Republicans and Democrats, the town of Rhinebeck, village of Rhinebeck, Red Hook, Clinton, all over, but there's nothing, not one solar panel on any county building.
What do you want, letters?
Yeah, letters, emails, thank you.
No, Joe did it by himself here.
No, but we did get a grant, and that's why the village has it. We have it, and a lot of towns have it, from President Obama as part of the Recovery Act. He channeled the money to the state and through the energy agency of the state, they paid for 80% of the cost, so we only paid for 20% of the cost. I don't know if grants are available to the county.
I commend you, sir. And I know it's Democrats and Republicans that have worked real well together, village, town. Anyway, thank you for your interest, because I've talked till I'm blue in the face on this. Would love to have some people joining me on that.
Yeah, I think Joe's right. You got to sort of try and, you're going to have to figure out or see where you can get funding from, because
we had that whole
county doesn't
presentation.
have money.
I'm sure Ms. Hugo remembers. We had, the money was available. This is April '08, but I'm sure there's money there. The solid waste management plan as proposed is out for the county. They're talking about a 59.5% recycling rate goal by 2021, which is not bad. Right now we're at 23%. I would just say that there's plenty of stuff in the solid waste management plan about how incineration is green, which is not true. If you go to stoptrashingtheclimate.org, the EPA warm analysis is thoroughly debunked. And also, 3 years ago, Clearwater, Sierra Club, NYPIRG, all these groups across the state that are part of the Zero Waste Coalition, they came out with a goal saying 85% recycling rate by 2020 for Dutchess County and the entire state. 85% by 2020, not 59.5% by 2021. So I'm not trying to look a gift horse in the mouth. I would say the only reason why the front page of the Poughkeepsie Journal talked about a 60% recycling rate is because of troublemaking pains in the neck, like the guy that's standing in front of you. And if you want to join me and hold these guys' feet to the fire a little bit more, we can get the recycling rate up a little bit more. So that public hearing is happening at the Farm and Home Center in Millbrook, Tuesday, February 26th, I believe, at 7 o'clock. And Neil Seldman, who's the president of the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, he's going to do a Skype. I'm doing a forum at Vassar Thursday, February 21st at 5:30. Shabazz Jackson, many of you are aware, he has the contract with the city of Poughkeepsie and the town of Poughkeepsie, got recycling rate up and Beacon to 70%. Shabazz Jackson and I, we're doing a zero waste update forum with Neil Seldman, who's the top zero waste expert in the country, Skyping in on the big screen, Thursday, February 21st at 5:30 at Vassar, Rockefeller Hall. The only other thing I'll say is, talked to Town Clerk Gautier earlier today. Wednesday, February 13th, I'm doing a forum in this room about the impact, basically what's going on in Albany with the state budget. There have been a lot of things cut from the Dutchess County budget over the years. We don't have the Human Rights Commission. We don't have the Youth Bureau Project Return Program for disadvantaged, troubled kids. And John, I forgot that you two were both there. I'm sorry that you were both there in April 08. I apologize. There's a lot of things that have been cut. We don't have the Cornell Cooperative Extension Green Team Community Gardening Program in the city of Poughkeepsie. There are a lot of things that have been cut. And basically, we have 7 weeks right now. From now until about March 21st, everybody's saying the state budget's going to be done by March 21st. So I just want to let you know, New York State Library Association, Children's Defense Fund, Statewide Senior Action Council, Alliance for Retired Americans, Alliance for Quality Education, Interfaith Impact in New York State, Interfaith Alliance of New York State, AFL-CIO, all these different groups are part of this huge Better Choice Budget Coalition, talking about progressive taxation like taxing Wall Street, closing the corporate tax loopholes. The millionaire's tax used to be $5 billion a year in New York State. Now it's only $2.5 billion as of the last 14 months. So there's a lot of ways, and I'm just telling everybody in this room, if you don't like paying high property taxes, high county sales taxes, and if you're sick and tired of seeing budget cuts, we only have 7 weeks to make a difference. Unless you want to work with me for a county level income tax on the wealthy. That's going to happen anytime tomorrow. So I'm just being honest. If you really care about making sure that town of Rhinebeck property taxes hold on and things are funded, no more layoffs on the town or county level, get to this room on Wednesday, February 13th at 5:30 p.m. and go to abetterchoiceforny.org. That's the website that has this massive coalition. A lot of Republicans and Democrats don't want to pay attention to this coalition, but it's abetterchoiceforny.org. Thank you for your patience. I remain at 876-2488.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you, Joel.
All right, any further comments? All right, okay, motion and second to adjourn.
Motion?
Second.
Yeah? Yeah, sure.
No, I'm going to request that it be read into the minutes.
What, just that portion dealing with party caucuses?
Yes.
I should probably pull it up.
No, here
I
it is.
haven't.
Would you be willing to read it into the minutes?
Yeah, I've crossed out the irrelevant parts. It's Public Officers Law, Article 7, Section 108, dealing with exceptions. Nothing contained in this article shall be construed as extending the provisions hereof to, and then subsection 2A, deliberations of political committees, conferences, and caucuses, and then subsection B is a definition. For purposes of this section, the deliberations of political committees, conferences, and caucuses means a private meeting of members of the legislative body of a town or village who are members or adherents of the same political party without regard to, 1, the subject matter under discussion, including discussions of public business, subsection 2, the majority or minority status of such political committee, conferences, or caucuses, or 3, whether such political committees, conferences, and caucuses invite staff or guests to participate in their deliberations, and subsection 3, any matter made confidential by federal or state law. I also have declare, if you want it, this was signed into law, this exception by Governor Cuomo, and his legislative declaration, when he signed it, is the legislature hereby reaffirms that the public business of public bodies of the state of New York should generally be conducted at open and public meetings. Nevertheless, as recognized by the Court of Appeals of the State of New York in matter of Orange County Publications and Council versus the City of Newburgh, 45 New York 2nd, 947, 949, quote, neither public nor private meetings of government bodies are inherently desirable or undesirable. Whichever kind of meeting is permitted or required, there are offsetting losses or gains. When enacted the Open Meetings Law, this article, the legislature intended and provided that the deliberations of political committees, conferences, and caucuses should be exempt from coverage of such law. Such exemption was enacted in furtherance of the legislature's recognition that the public interest is well served by the political party system in legislative bodies because such parties served as mediating institutions between disparate interest groups and government and promote continuity, stability, and orderliness in government. The performance of this function requires the private, candid exchange of ideas and points of view among members of each political party concerning the public business that comes before legislative bodies. Recent judicial decisions have, however, eroded this exemption by holding that it applies only to discussions of political business. Accordingly, the legislature hereby declares its adherence to the original intent of the legislature, that the provisions of the open meeting law are not applicable to the deliberation of political committees, conferences, and caucuses of legislative bodies, regardless of, one, the subject matter under discussion, including discussions of public business, two, the majority or minority status of such political committees, conferences, and caucuses, or three, whether such political committees, conferences, and caucuses invite staff or guests to participate in their deliberations.
Thank you. Can we have all that into the minutes, please? I'd just like to ask the supervisor if there's anything about that that he doesn't understand.
I understand it, sure, yeah.
Well, then, on what did you
Look,
base your complaint about the Democratic Caucus?
I'm not complaining about the Democratic Caucus. My point is a matter of principle. We are a small town board of 5 members. When a majority of 3 get together, that's a majority. When 3 members get together, that's a majority. When we conduct business, my point is that I want to have it in an open, public meeting for the community to see.
I agree.
That's my point.
But
That's it,
they were
final.
not conducting,
I'm
making
not, I am
decisions.
not arguing about this, okay? That's my point, period.
Well, you
That's
should
a-
argue about it, Mr.
Uh,
Trout, because
that's my point.
You clearly complained about something that was entirely legal,
Okay.
entirely proper. It's done by every level of government in the country, all the way up to the U.S. Congress and Senate. And I really think...
We are a lot
that you-
smaller than the U.S.
May I
Congress
finish,
and
please,
Senate,
without being
and I
interrupted?
appreciate your comments, but I'm not talking about this any
May I
further.
finish, please, without being interrupted? I think that you're going to the paper and complaining about this really made our Democratic caucus sound like they were doing something illegal. And
I was really-
I think you totally
Well,
misrepresented it, and I think you need to write to the paper or call that reporter and say that you misunderstood the law and that you apologize for having misrepresented what they were doing.
Well, I want to be sure. I'm not complaining about the caucus getting together. I'm complaining about the board getting together outside the public view when it's a
No, but
majority.
that's not what you
it.
said.
Well, that's my
You were
point.
complaining about their caucus.
All right, motion and second to
you
adjourn?
totally misrepresented what they did.
I'm not talking about this any further, okay?
Well, I do.
Motion and second to adjourn?
No, sir, you can't do that. I'm
This meeting is
sorry, I
adjourned.
hold you accountable.
Okay, well, you can hold me accountable.
I
Fine.
certainly do.
Well, I'm a
and
public
I suspect
servant.
I'm not alone.
Perfectly entitled to.
I think you owe them a letter to the paper.
Right. Any further comments? Motion and second to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor, aye? We're here.
If she were here, but it
All right, come to order, please. Good evening. This is January 28th, 2013, Rhinebeck Town Board meeting. And we have tonight Kristen Henderson from the Girl Scout Cadets to start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was fun.
Wow.
All right, good evening. For announcements, the town and county tax bills have been sent out. If you have not received your bill by the end of this week, call the tax collector, 876-3203, and payments can be mailed to the address indicated on the bill or delivered in person to a local M&T Bank branch at 6375 Mill Street, right next to the post office.